Okay, so what's new in Fireware 11.11? There's a number of new items. There are new features and enhancements such as network visibility, mobile security, botnet detection, the new explicit proxy, allowed Google app domains, multiple hotspot portals, radius single sign-on, branch office VPN interface interoperability, APT blocker clean threat level, gateway wireless controller enhancements, fire cluster upgrade improvements, a loopback interface, and 32-bit BGP AS number support. Now we'll start off with network visibility. Network visibility is something that we've had a lot of requests for, and essentially it enables us to go out and do a network scan. We've integrated with an application called Nmap, and it allows us to go out and do a complete network scan depending on, on an interface by interface basis. So we can actually go out and scan Class C and Class B subnet across the different interfaces on the Firebox. Some of the information that we pull up and are able to access is information such as the IP addresses, device names, MAC addresses, operating system and services, open network ports, mobile security devices with compliance status. We also have a device expiration from the network map. This is when devices go away and you can't see them anymore. So previously detected devices are expired and removed from the map when a manual or scheduled scan does not discover the device, or after 7 days if no manual or scheduled scans performed. Mobile devices are considered offline if no traffic is seen for more than 2 hours. So I'm going to go in here, just a couple of things to know about this. You can only access this feature from the web GUI. So with that being said, I'm going to switch over to the web GUI and we'll take a look here. So to find this, there's 2 locations that you can find the network discovery. For the setup piece, it's actually down under System, Network Discovery, and it looks like this. So you log in, and with 11.11, there's the new lock feature that you have to unlock it in order to make any changes. And from here, you can set up your interfaces that you want to scan and your time frames, or you can just punch the Scan Now button, and it'll ask you what what interfaces you want to scan. So I currently have my lab box set up to scan on a daily basis at 0 hours and 0 minutes or midnight. But you could set it up to schedule, on Mondays at 2 p.m. if you wanted. One of the nice things about this is that the resources that are utilized on the box are throttled. So when you are running the scan, if it does turn out to be a high productivity time, it'll actually throttle those resources back that it requires to do the scan so that it doesn't interrupt productivity. On average, in my lab, I've got about between 19 and 21 devices behind the Firebox. On average, it takes about 2 hours to do a complete scan. Obviously, the larger the network, the longer it'll take. So when you do schedule these up, you should plan on having plenty of time to scan all the interfaces and get the proper information back. What look next at what it looks like once the scan is complete. So we'll find that information under System Status, Network Discovery. And so when your scan's complete, it looks something similar to this. You'll have your interfaces will be your first level or first tier, and then it breaks down from there on the number of devices you have. So you can actually open that up, take a look, and you can see your different devices. When you hover over them, you know, you can get more information, such as this particular device is our PS4. We've got the IP address, the MAC address. It's unable to assess the operating system because it's kind of a one-off type operating system, and it's discovered by DHCP detection. Now from here you can go in and you can edit the device, or if the device is one that's not been discovered before, say for example this Android phone here, I can actually go in and click remember device, and then I can program it to be whatever I want it to be, and it'll then stay in the discovered items, and it'll just show me when the last communication was. Okay, so there's also a device list here, and this will actually pull up all the devices that you have that are saved or have recently been discovered, and you can go in and look at different information about these devices. So we'll take a look at my domain controller. It shows that it's the device name, which is WGTISC_DC. It shows the IP address it's configured and the operating system type. It also shows the last time that it was seen, and that it's an approved device because I've told the box to, or the Firebox to remember this device. So when I click on this, it brings up more information where it actually shows the host name, IP address, all that same information again. I can create groups, so I could actually create something like a server group or something like that, and then I could group all my different elements that I find within my network. And it also will show all the scanned ports. It's amazing how many ports Microsoft opens up just for a default server. And I do wonder sometimes if all these open ports are necessary. But you know, that's another conversation. So this is essentially what you get when you see these, when you see the network discovery piece. Now, currently, network discovery does not function in WatchGuard System Manager, nor does it populate any information over to Dimension. However, there are future releases coming out. I believe it's going to be later in the third quarter. We'll see a release come out where we'll be able to populate this information over to Dimension and be able to run network scans and things like that from WatchGuard System Manager. I was told it was going to be in 11.11.2, but we'll wait patiently to find out. Some of the other stuff you can do just quickly, you can actually go look at Firewatch. So you can see this device, where it's going and what it's doing through the Firewatch application that we have. It's really interesting because you can drill down and look at the different kinds of traffic that this particular device is producing. We'll go back here. The other thing you can do is go back in the device list, and you can go into traffic monitor as well. You can actually see all the logs that are being produced by this particular device. Okay. All right. So Let's move back over here to our PowerPoint, and we'll move on to the next piece. So the next piece is mobile security. Mobile security is kind of interesting because what we've done is we have created a portion of our a firebox that can actually decide whether or not a network element is secure enough to access the firebox and therefore the wireless network. The mobile security, it sets a security requirements for iOS and Android mobile devices to send traffic through the network. It requires an additional license for the number of users with expiration date. So it's a per user license that's additional to the cost of the subscription programs that we have. On the firebox, you set up the device compliance requirements such as approved OS versions, no rooted or jailbroken devices, no malware, riskware, adware, and that's on Android only. To be compliant, mobile users must run the Fire Client app first, and the compliance status appears in the mobile security dashboard. Firebox denies traffic from mobile devices that are not compliant. We'll take a look at this. This is workable in WSM, and we can go in and set this up in WSM. So I will, I'll go ahead and take a quick look at that and show you how it works. Okay, so in WSM, you can actually go here to mobile security. Let's see here, mobile security, which is under the setup, and it's as simple as enabling mobile security. You can tell it which interface you're going to run mobile security on. For example, in the case of my network, I would run mobile security on my wireless interface and take everything else out. And then you can also add bypass sites, fully qualified domain names. For example, store.google.com, which would allow the particular mobile device to go to google.com to the store to download the application right there. You could also do something like store.apple.com. I don't know the exact fully qualified domain name, but that's essentially how you would bypass the blocks on that. For the device compliance, there's a checkbox here that says set that to unknown until a compliance check has been completed. And then we go down here and we can drop down and we can look at Android devices or iOS devices and set this up appropriately. So for example, device compliance, you can go all the way back to 4.1. So we would add 4.1 and then 5.* 6.*, and on the iOS devices we'd do 8.* 9.* so that it would cover any of those releases in there with the wildcard character, which is a star. Just a little hint, just a little hack that we found. If you go in here and remove all of these, and you don't want any Android devices on your network at all, you could always go in and put in 99. Or something to that effect, and it won't allow anything that doesn't show release 99 or better to connect. Just a little hack. Makes things kind of interesting. So we'll go ahead and add this back in here so somebody can connect to this network. You can also go in, you have checkbox for do not allow rooted devices, do not allow devices with USB debugging enabled, do not allow devices with installation of applications from unknown sources. You can also check to allow devices or disallow devices with malware, adware, riskware installed. The scan that occurs on the device from the Fire Client app is actually from Kaspersky. So Kaspersky does the malware, scanware, or adware scan, checks out the phone, and then comes back and tells us whether or not there's anything on there. You can also set protection settings for Android devices and iOS devices. There's not a lot of options for iOS. Everyone seems to have the opinion that it's safer. But for Android, you can monitor new application installation and you can monitor new file installation. And then there's also a place to put an intro message or an authorization agreement that will populate once the mobile device connects to the Firebox. It'll populate the Fire Client, and then it'll require the end user to agree with this message. So this is pretty much how you set up mobile security, and it's pretty simple, really. Once you get it set up, and it does work very well. I actually set it up on my home network and forgot to let everyone know. And when my wife and kids came in, tried to connect to the home network, we'll just say things got ugly. They weren't real happy that they couldn't connect because they didn't have Fire Client. Took me a few minutes to figure that one out, but we got it straightened out eventually. So let's go back over here to take a look at the PowerPoint again, and we'll just move on down the road a little bit. We're getting a little short on time, but we'll move along. In the web GUI, once you have a device that's connected and is compliant, the phone will actually show the compliant state with the green check mark. And there's also a recheck button, and in the web GUI it'll show whether or not that device passed or failed its compliance check. Just a couple of other things to know. The mobile security license specifies a maximum number of unique concurrent users. In this example, it shows mobile security users at 10,000 with an expiration date of November 15th, 2016. So the license would actually allow 10,000 unique users. Something interesting to know about this as well is this is on a per user basis. So if you have a single user that logs in with multiple devices, as long as they use the same username, they can log in with multiple devices. So it's not a per device count, but merely a per user count. As it says, from more than one mobile device simultaneously. Mobile security is supported for Firebox models only, so it is not supported on the XTM models. So we cannot, even though we can upgrade the XTM 2526 and those models to 11.11, we cannot run mobile security on those. There's not enough resources built into the box itself. There's a couple of things here to enforce mobile security. Firebox detects the device type for all devices that connect. You can run it on any of the portals, such as the hotspot portal or authentication portal, and it gets the device type from the user agent in the HTTP header. It can also get the information from Exchange Monitor or from DHCP fingerprinting. With the mobile VPN, you can authenticate through mobile VPN, and it will still require you to authenticate with the Fire Client. However, you would authenticate with mobile VPN first and then authenticate with the Fire Client and that's both on IPsec and the SSL VPN. Now, one thing to note, this only works on iOS and Android, so it does not work on Windows or any of the others like, oh gosh, there's a couple of them, but primarily the questions I've been asked are Windows and then the Palm devices. So those, they don't work there. Let's see here. So just an idea of what the Fire Client app will look like on the phone. The first screen you'd see, it would come up. It would say connect. You'd enter in the IP address of the Firebox. Then you would enter the username and password once it gave you the login screen. Then it will come back after it does a scan, and it'll tell you whether or not you're compliant. You must keep the Fire Client running to remain compliant and to be able to continue accessing resources on the network. And if for some reason you come up as non-compliant, it'll tell you non-compliant, and it'll tell you why you're non-compliant, and that will also link you over to where you need to go to fix whatever issues are there so that you can become compliant. So that's everything on mobile security. Our next topic will be botnet detection. The botnet detection is a new feature. It is included with the red license for 11.11, and it's another Kaspersky feature. Kaspersky has a great list of known botnet sites that they constantly update. It is signature based, so they do updates and everything. So botnet, it's comprised of a very large number of malware infected client computers that are controlled by a remote server to perform malicious acts. As you know, there's denial of service, spam and viruses, or even stealing private data from clients. Firebox can already block access from infected clients on the network over HTTP with the web blocker command and control and botnet activity categories. Botnets are now finding other paths to control infected botnet clients. They use non-traditional network ports, social networks, and point-to-point networks, or peer-to-peer networks. The new botnet detection subscription service uses a feed known as botnet site IP addresses from Kaspersky. The botnet, you will not be able to see the list when you go look in your block sites list, simply because there are so many sites in there that there are so many IP addresses, just too many to list out. This does enable your Firebox to block botnet activity at the packet filter level. And as I said before, botnet detection is enabled with the red feature key. Just something interesting to know about this, when you start looking at your logs, you can differentiate whether it's a source or destination attack by the order that the IP addresses are in. For example, internal IP address coming first would be a destination botnet site, and the internal being second would be a source, so be coming in from the source site. You do need to enable alarm notifications in the block sites list configuration, just like other block sites events. Before we get to explicit proxy, I do want to just show you how hard this is to enable. It's really, really difficult. We'll just pop right over here. You go under subscription services, and then you go into botnet detection, and it's literally block traffic suspected of botnet sites. You check box there, and then you got to go to update server and do your botnet detection sites for your automatic updates, so that you continually get those updates. It is literally that simple. So we'll go back over here to the PowerPoint so we can keep our place. And we're going to talk about explicit proxy right quick. I know we're running a little short on time, so we're going to go as quickly as we can through this. Explicit proxy, in a typical proxy configuration, Firebox transparently proxies and inspects client connections to servers. Basically, what the explicit proxy allows is it allows you to set up a proxy address in your web browser and then send all of that browser traffic back to the Firebox so that it can make use of the different scanning features of the Firebox, such as deep packet inspection, web blocker, IPS, and the different subscription services that we have there. The browser compliance are configured to send requests directly to the Firebox IP address and ports. Something interesting to know, the explicit proxy uses TCP port 3128 by default, and web caching is not performed at the Firebox. It merely passes traffic through. Explicit proxy traffic is logged and reported in Dimension as HTTP proxy traffic. So there's also HTTP connect tunneling, which supports HTTPS, which supports our deep packet inspection and filtering that way. Once again, it uses port number 3128. It establishes TCP connection to the specified destination, and then it changes the header and puts in a via on the header via the Firebox IP address. You can also allow, deny, or block traffic based on specified ports, or select an HTTPS proxy action to handle tunneled secure traffic. It also supports FTP over HTTP. I don't see a lot of use going on here, though occasionally the request is made. So we'll just kind of bypass this one, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them in, and I'll be glad to answer those questions. In order to add add and configure explicit proxy, it's pretty simple. Just merely go in. Tom, are you hopping in here? So there's a number of ways to do this. You can set up the via header address, the FTP settings, and enforce authentication portal for the explicit proxy. And then you can also go in and set up your connect tunneling to allow, and then match type, single port 443 for HTTPS. It also supports proxy auto configuration, or PAC files. What this allows is for you to set up a DHCP rule that would allow, when you go out and get an IP address, it'll come back and configure your browsers automatically for you. PAC files can be stored in the Firebox, and they can be synchronized across a cluster of Fireboxes. There are two rules that are created when you create an explicit proxy. It's the actual explicit proxy filter, or explicit proxy policy, and then the PAC file proxy, or PAC file rule that's created. So you'll see both of those in your rule sets. The PAC file management, you can actually do that, do the auto configuration. You can do an upload there. So it's all set up, and go into the DHCP options, and you can set up code 252 DHCP rule, and give it the file name, and it'll automatically take care of that for you. Let's see, browser configurations. There's a manual browser configuration, or there's an auto browser configuration. Can be connected, can be discovered with WPAD, automatically detect the settings. And most enterprises, the proxy auto configuration is distributed through Active Directory. You can also provide manual configuration of an explicit proxy with the external IP address and then the port number. Okay, so another feature that they put into 11.11 is allowed Google Apps domains. This is interesting and useful in that it can block people from checking their Gmail account. However, if a specific customer is hosting their email at the Gmail servers, you can allow that particular domain name to be checked at Google Mail, but not the @gmail.com accounts. It's a simple setup. You go in there in the content inspection on HTTPS and then tell it to restrict Google Apps to allowed domains, enter the domain name, and you're good to go. It does not block items that do not require authentication, such as Google Search or YouTube. Radius SSO. We are supporting the Radius SSO for single sign-in on the Radius servers. Setup is similar to Active Directory single sign-on. We can get into this in more detail if anyone would like to, but we simply don't have time to cover all this information on this webinar. You can create multiple hotspots. Before, you could create a single hotspot and apply it to a single host port. However, now you can create multiple hotspots. You can assign them to VLANs, bridges, link aggregation, or wireless networks. Each hotspot can have a different authentication type. You can connect with or without credentials. You can even require users to authenticate with generated credentials or Radius. There is external guest authentication, but that is still only on one external guest hotspot, and you can now enable that for multiple interfaces. Hotspot configuration, if you go into the Hotspots tab, you see the Add button, and you can add and create multiple hotspots, and then go in and assign those to the interfaces that you want them to be assigned to. Another new feature that we've just recently put into 11.11 is branch office VPN interoperability. We had the ability to do this to a certain degree previously. However, we are now supporting GRE, and GRE will allow us to connect to both Cisco and Fortinet. It does allow for static and dynamic routing through the branch office VPN virtual interfaces. Let's see, for dynamic routing to third-party VPN point, the configuration is a little bit different. It allows us to connect, as I said before, to Cisco and Fortinet. However, it does not support connections to SonicWall, Palo Alto, Amazon, AWS, or Microsoft Azure. However, Amazon and Microsoft Azure are coming in a future release. If I'm not mistaken, it should be somewhere around 11.11.2. There's a few other enhancements. These are just real quick. APT blocker now has a new clean threat level. We did that because a lot of people were getting into the APT blocker and then asking what it was doing because it wasn't sending anything across to Dimension. It now sends all information to Dimension on everything it scans so that you can actually see what it's doing and how it's working. Another feature with APT blockers, we now support Mac application files or .app files. Those can now be sent to last line for cloud server for analysis. And we also support compressed, we have new compressed file support for RAR and 7Z files. They can now be decompressed and recompressed. WatchGuard wireless controller enhancements. We now have auto deployment on WatchGuard APs, so we can go in and set the wireless controller to automatically detect and deploy a particular or newly deployed AP, and it will set it with a default set of SSIDs that we tell it to set that with. Now, it will not do any radio settings or anything like that. Those will still be set to default. However, if you're deploying, 10 or 15 new APs, you don't have to go in and pair those one by one any longer. They'll automatically pair. Gateway wireless controller scalability. We can now greatly increase the number of APs that a gateway wireless controller can handle. I don't have exact numbers on that, however I can get that for you. Gateway wireless controller now supported in Firebox drop-in mode, AP support for Radius SSO accounting, and wireless monitoring, including PHY mode, to indicate specific wireless modes such as BGA, N40, or AC80. We have an improved fire cluster upgrade process. Essentially what that does is when you upgraded clusters before, you had to go in and switch back and forth between the primary and secondary. Now you can send an upgrade to a single interface, and it will automatically do those upgrades for you, switching your clusters back and forth. It's a lot less work. There's now a loopback interface. This is primarily for dynamic routing such as RIP, OSPF, and BGP to multiple ISPs. It's only supported in routed mode, and you can't use it on secondary IP addresses or branch office VPNs, a virtual interface to write to an IP address of a network route. So it's primarily a testing piece. And finally, we have 32-bit BGP AS number support and for autonomous system numbers. If anybody knows what that is, then they'll do okay on the test. All right? For anybody who wants to do the quiz, we're concluding our presentation at this time. However, I will put up the test questions, and you guys can feel free to answer those across the communication channel for the webinar. And once I get all that information in, we'll be sending out a shirt to the winner. Whoever gets the most questions correct, we'll send out a shirt to. Once again, please use the messaging service to send answers. Best of luck to everyone, and not only will I send out the shirt, but I'll also send out to everyone who the winner was and what the correct answers are. All right. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. I do appreciate it, and here are your questions. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you everyone for listening to today's Tech Tips and Tricks webinar. So that you can get an opportunity to answer all the questions, I'll leave the broadcast open.